Carly, tell me about a time, I believe this has happened to everybody, so hopefully you can think of something on the fly. First time you're hearing this question for our podcast listeners. When's a time that you misheard something and it had some consequences in life?
I have a different answer, and you can totally scrap this podcast intro if you don't like this, but this is not recently, but have you ever heard the song Secret Agent Man?
Yeah.
When I was little, I used to think that was Secret Asian Man, and I would sing that all the time. It didn't really have any consequences, but it was like I was singing Secret Asian Man like all the time instead of Secret Agent Man.
When did you find out that was, in fact, not the lyrics of the song?
When I was in middle school jazz band, and we actually played Secret Agent Man, and I played saxophone on that song, and I was like, "This is Secret Asian Man. What the heck?"
They got the lyrics wrong on the sheet music. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I actually had a similar experience. I always thought this song, Tiny Dancer.
Yeah.
I thought it was Hold Me Closer, Tony Danza. For a long time. I don't know why. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
That's what I would sing.
Yeah.
And then I found out, it's Tiny Dancer?
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. Well,
yeah.
I still sing Tony Danza because that's just what's in my head.
And I still sing Secret Asian Man. So
yeah, shout out Tony Danza.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I ask is because we're talking today with Chris Barlow around listening and what it means to listen actively, how you listen to your donors. And there's so many ways to do that, but there's also ways to get that wrong. And there's ways in which maybe you don't listen or you don't hear really the full message from your donors, that it can have impact on the way you communicate, but ultimately on the way that you engage and strengthen that relationship with your donors. And so we're going to dive into that conversation today. And what I love about Chris too is he has some great theories and ways to kind of think about this stuff, but then also some really practical things that I think people will listen to today and be able to actually take and put into practice to hopefully help with their communication, their fundraising, their donor engagement, and to see that grow. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. We're going to have active listening during it, and we're going to listen intently, and there's going to be great listening happening. And so we're excited for it. Let's get to it now. Welcome to the Responsive Lab, your new favorite podcast where innovation and impact come together to transform the nonprofit world.
Brought to you by Virtuous, a software company committed to helping nonprofits grow generosity.
At Virtuous, we believe that generosity has the power to create profound change, both in the world and in the heart of the giver.
Learn more about Virtuous and download your free nonprofit CRM checklist at virtuous.org/checklist.
Well, Chris, thanks so much for joining us today. We're looking forward to our conversation. As we jump in, would love to just hear a little bit about your background, hear about the journey that's led you to where you are today, and kind of what you're up to now.
Well, I grew up watching my dad get burned out working for corporate America. And I just had no interest in business or, the movie The Office, just didn't want to do that. Office Space. Yeah. Didn't want to do that. So I thought I was going to live overseas and serve people and do something just very people oriented, focused. But then I got married right my last year of college. And as I got out of college, I was like, I've got to get a job. And so I got recruited by a company that was on campus, sales job, doing cold calling.
Yeah.
And instead of hating the job, I actually loved it. And I had a great manager and fun coworkers who were really supportive. And I worked at that job for a long time. But even from the beginning, I just knew I wasn't going to retire in that industry, financial transaction sales, and knew that I probably wouldn't retire at the company. Things would change. So at about 8 years in, I started Beeline as a side business. And it started with me just taking a course on Google Ads. And I just kind of fell into that. And to get some experience under my belt, I knew a local nonprofit. And I just asked them, hey, can I just, as a volunteer, run your Google grant to get some experience under my belt? And they were like, sure, that'd be great, Chris.
They probably
And
love that.
so
They're like, yes, please.
yeah, it was a perfect fit for just to get a start. And that first year in 2016, I got some other clients, but it was that nonprofit. It kind of slowly grew from that because they at some point were like, Chris, we want to do more. We think this is worth paying you for. We want to actually like turn this into something and do some other work with you. And then they referred other nonprofits to me. And by 2020, when I was starting to get ready to do this full time, it made sense to really put my focus in nonprofits. And it felt like I was coming back full circle to where I was as a kid and like wanting to do something meaningful and helping people. And so, yeah, I'm very, very grateful for where I've ended up.
Yeah.
That's so funny to me that you wanted to work with people and now you work like in digital marketing, which to me is kind of like the opposite of working with people. And I feel like our generation, it's so easy to just like see all of the noise of what's going on. Like we're all getting so many ads every day, like so many emails, so many different things coming at us. Like, how would you suggest to a nonprofit listening how they can cut through the noise and connect with their actual audience?
Yeah, like you're right. It's like, how does digital marketing, how does that connect with people, and how are just so much noise out there. I think one of the most important things that we can do is when we're wanting to reach people is to listen to them. And so there's something I love is there are always like these unchanging principles about relationships, about people that are always applicable no matter how much technology and platforms around us change. And so to me, active listening is one of those things where if we understand the principle, we can figure out how to apply it. And so if instead of just saying, how can we put more stuff out there that'll get people's attention, and instead shift to how can we be responsive and listen and respond to what our audience is saying and doing and how they're communicating with us and invite conversation, the more I think that will cut through the noise naturally, because now we're suddenly a real person. There's a real person on the other end. I think we forget in digital marketing that there's a real person seeing our ad, and they forget there's a real person on the other side of that. And the more we remember, there's real people here. That will automatically cut through the noise. And there's a lot of ways that we can apply that principle specifically in marketing.
Yeah. I think that's one of the important things too. Like whenever we have conversations that talk about data, is not just talking about data as its own thing, but remember data is people and data is representative of people and real people. And I think that's important. And to me, I feel like in a lot of these conversations, there's that constant, not even tension, but like two sides of the same coin, which is, digital marketing and technology and tools and data and all of that, but then also a very real human side. And the fact that so many who are in nonprofits and so many who live in this world, like are really there for the impact and the mission, which oftentimes centers around people. And I think that's an important call out. But specifically, I know that you believe in the power of data and data-driven marketing, and not just let's just do random acts of marketing, but let's let data drive what we're doing. So first, can you kind of define some of the important data signals that a nonprofit should pay attention to? And then I'd love to jump into those like a little bit further, but let's just start there. What are some of those signals that nonprofits should pay attention to?
Yeah. And as you said, on the other, like data represents people. I mean, there are other people at the other end. And to me, what data-driven means is just data-driven marketing is listening to people and responding to what you're seeing and hearing. And it's not always words. It's behavior. It's the unspoken signals that people are giving, body language, if you will, digital body language. And, so if you ignore that, it just means you're too focused on what you're saying and not enough on what your audience is saying, what your donors are saying. And of course, there's an element of learning how to understand the data, and it's not just a communication, but like a conversation. But anyway, so yeah, in terms of the different ways we can look at that, I mean, are people, if we look at like a donor journey, are people, if you're running ads, for example, are they clicking on your ad or opening your emails? And if not, to me, that's the way to listen, is to look at that and then say, is our ad or the subject line of our email relevant to what our audience cares about? Is it something if I was getting this email and reading the subject line, can I step outside of my being inside the box of this nonprofit and look at this as a person, as an individual rather? Would I be interested in this? Would this be helpful to me? Would this ad be relevant to me? And so that's one area. Another one is like, when people land on your site or maybe your donation page or your landing page, do they sign up? Do they subscribe? Do they donate? And if it seems like that the results you're getting are lower than you would hope, or it's not very effective, then you're thinking about, well, what is the value proposition on my page? And is the value proposition about me, or is it about something that's relevant for them? Like, am I answering the question, why should I, the donor, give to you rather than to anyone else, or not at all? Or why should I sign up for you, give you my email address, where I could sign up somewhere else, or just not give anyone my email address and just find a blog post that answers my question? So looking at our pages and saying, am I actually communicating the value proposition? Am I talking from their perspective? And if I'm not getting the kind of results I expect, how do I need to change that?
Yeah.
And a really, really powerful way I'm going to add to this to understand why people did take that action is right after someone signs up, whether that's subscribing or they sign up for an event or they donate, is to have a quick one question survey and say, why did you choose to do that? Why did you choose to sign up? Why did you choose to download? Why did you choose to donate today?
Yeah.
I have
That
a
gives
question
them an
about
actual,
that.
Yeah.
Do you actually see people giving you the right answer? And I mean that because I've put that on a donation form before, and then sometimes I get answers that I'm like, that's how you thought you landed on this donation form? That's not actually possible. So I'm just like, I think that's a great idea, but sometimes I also feel like donor bias, like they don't actually remember the path. Like we think that they should remember the actual steps.
Yeah.
But they're like, it's interesting because it's more like motivation than it is like where they actually came from, but like what motivated them to actually get to that page.
Yes. I think that's the more important question. Like, yeah, people don't remember how they got somewhere. I agree with you. But if you ask, why did you choose to give just now? Or why did you choose to subscribe? Or how was this helpful to you? That they will remember. That because that's what they're thinking about right now. And because the path of how they got to your page is really not that important in the end to them. And so compiling those answers and giving someone at the moment of that gift or the moment of that subscription a chance to tell you, then you can look across all the answers you get and draw out the words they use, the ideas they share, the feelings they're feeling. And now you can use that to, one, understand people better, just like the real relationship part, like okay, this is what my donors are thinking. This is what they're feeling. This is what's important to them. And also you can use that on the actual page itself. Like, okay, now we need to use these words and these emotions and these ideas on our donation page or on our sign up page, landing page, or in our ads, because that's what's speaking to our audience.
Yeah, I think that's great. I'm curious on this idea of active listening or being responsive. How can that help organizations pick the right communication channels? And kind of like I just said, sometimes there's this, in my experience, this like attribution issue where maybe one channel looks like it's performing higher than others. So we start spending there, but really it's coming in from another channel. Like, how can you use that listening to make sure that you're using the right channels to communicate with your donors?
That is a really good question. And I think it's hard to answer in some ways because, attribution is like one of the banes of marketing. Just like, how do you do it, and all the different ways that things get attributed. I think one thing is to look at when someone takes the time to give you actual feedback, like what is the quality of the feedback or input you're getting? So not just a click, but did they, like if you're running an ad, did they, and say it's a Facebook ad, did they make a comment? Did they share? Did they like it? Or are people engaging with your posts on one channel versus another? I think that's one thing you're looking at, is just like, what's the quality of the feedback that I'm getting? We send out an email campaign. I think email is kind of always an appropriate and good channel to use. So this may not be the best example, but like you send out an email campaign and like you don't get much response, but you send out a direct mailing and you get phone calls. And it's like, okay, people are reaching back to us. They're calling us, or they have a form where they can fill in and give some feedback or tell us what they think. Like whatever, again, quality response you get, or like with email, are you getting replies? With SMS, are you getting replies? So that's, to me, one way you can look at that is, where are people actually taking the time to respond, and on what platform or channel is that happening?
Yeah, I think that's super helpful. I think one thing too, that I'd love to hear you just kind of speak to is maybe some of the methods or some of the tools or ways, because I could see some people listening to this be like, this sounds awesome. I'd love to know this information, but how do I actually do it? Like what do I use to capture that, to like act on it? And so what are some of the like maybe tactical ways that people can implement that? And I get somebody may not be able to change a marketing platform or CRM tomorrow, but I think that there are probably some small steps that people can take to start to kind of grow in this. So what advice would you give to people who are hearing this saying, yes, I want to, now what should I do?
Yeah. So the quick, easiest thing you can do to start to try to actively listen and engage people is, in your email marketing or SMS, don't just aim for what's our open rate, what's our click rate, but what's our reply rate. And that actually changes how you will write your emails, because you need to encourage your subscribers to reply, invite replies, let them know, hey, if you reply, we'll respond. Like, we're here, we read these emails. Like, yes, that this is a marketing email. This wasn't a personal one-to-one email from my fundraising, person. But if you reply, it will, we're here, we're listening, we respond all the time. So inviting those replies and writing your emails in that way that's like the quickest and easiest thing you can do. And you get those if you get replies from potential or current donors, like that is going to create a much stronger relationship already just by that conversation happening. And another, I mean, there's a lot of tools out here to do this, and even Virtuous might have this ability. But I use Paperform with our clients, and that lets you just create a very simple survey that's embedded on the thank you page. And whenever someone hits a thank you page, we just say, we take advantage of that moment while they're engaged with us. I think that's just one of the best opportunities, because they're thinking about us right now. They haven't gone away. Often we just say, thanks for donating, watch your email for a receipt or whatever. But why not say, what's your preferred method of communication? What is your vision for our mission, or what are we doing well? How can we improve? Again, why did you choose to give today? And then, can someone from our fundraising team, or would you give your permission for someone from our fundraising team to actually reach out to you? If you get someone who's like, they write 2 paragraphs on their vision for your mission, and they give you a good reason why they gave, and they're like, yeah, I'd love to talk to someone. Maybe that's a mid-level major donor you have on your hands. Like, you don't know that. Yeah. You might, but like, that's how you can start to segment people who just gave a gift from people who are really engaged in your mission. So I really like the post donation or post subscription survey. And then of course, doing surveys in your email marketing, SMS, just encouraging people to give their feedback and saying, we don't talk to I don't talk to you one-to-one on an everyday basis. We don't even talk on a monthly basis. But this survey here is not to just gather random data from you. It's to talk to you, and it's to give you a chance to feedback. And if you just want to hit reply. Don't worry about the survey. Saying again, just like what we want is a real connection and to understand you, not just data.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. Since you've worked in digital marketing, you've probably seen just the massive amount of change, even in the past couple of years, as all the technology changes and the algorithms change. What advice would you give nonprofits as they're thinking about building a marketing strategy into the future? I know probably 5 years from now, it's going to look nothing like it looks like now. So that would be really hard to predict. But what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about how marketing is changing and how they want to stay relevant?
That's really good. And again, going back to what I said at the beginning, like always like knowing those bedrock principles that don't change, like be generous, give first, apply active listening. Those will never change. And no matter what the platform is, you'll find a way to apply it. So that's a simple thing. That's a straightforward thing. In terms of other things that I think nonprofits should be really focusing on to stay relevant for the next 5 years is always invest in marketing assets that belong to you, that you own. So put your website first before any social channel. Every social channel can completely change. You get someone buying a social media channel, everything about it can change. Yeah. And you have a company decide that you can't reach your organic audience, people who are following your page anymore. You can't reach them that way anymore. And so your website, and again, I'll mention too, your website is another good place to be responsive. Have ways for people to give you feedback on your site, like have a little poll. There's some tools out there that will allow you to like ask someone, are you finding the information you're looking for on this page? So your website as an asset, your email list or SMS list, again, you own the permission of everyone on that list to stay in touch with them. And so that's not going away in 5 years. That will still be relevant in 5 years. And then the last one I would say that to invest in and that's worthwhile is your community of donors, like a monthly donor community, and building that identity of people who support you. Having a monthly donors, that will always be valuable no matter what changes around us in terms of marketing and platforms and AI.
Yeah. Chris, I'm curious if you could do two things. One, if you could give a challenge to the fundraisers and the marketing folks listening to this. So something that you feel like there needs to be a bit of a challenge to grow in this, to learn this, to get better at this. But then also if you could give an encouragement, because I know that oftentimes people work a lot of thankless, unseen hours and can feel that. So would you mind doing both of those?
Yeah. Okay. So your challenge is this, and this is related to the previous question of what's going to be relevant in 5 years. Well, with AI, information and content is getting less and less valuable. It's a dime a dozen. If AI can produce something that you're using for marketing content that you're creating, then it can be easily replaced and found, and what you're offering isn't going to be as needed, or it's not needed at all. Like what we all are creating, right? So focus on creating less things that are more valuable and more helpful. Put more effort into something that's truly going to help some of your donors in a meaningful way, and can continue to do that over time. Yeah. Instead of just like a quick and easy, like, download or blog post or guide or checklist or whatever it might be. And so that's my challenge is, can you serve your donors? Find a way to serve your donors. And that's the best way to encourage them, to attract them in the first place, to retain them, And my encouragement to you is that your mission is the key to doing that well. And use your mission to you don't need to come up with something else. The things that you value most in the world, or the reason that your organization exists, is because of your underlying values. You value that, you have a value that, for example, that human lives are valuable. Therefore, we provide the way this plays out in the world is we provide food in countries where there's not enough food. Or we believe that animals, every animal is valuable, so we care for animals that have been neglected in our community. That underlying value is what you can use to shape how you serve your donors. You don't have to stray from that and to say, okay, how can we serve our donors in a way that shows them that they're valuable, or that the animals in their life are valuable, help them fulfill the mission in a different way. So how can we use our knowledge, our expertise, and our encouragement, and everything we have as an organization to support them in furthering that in their own lives? And if we can bring together our mission and our fundraising, then everything we're doing is united.
Yeah.
And so we don't have to feel divided in our fundraising is part of our mission. It's a key part of our mission. It's inherently good. And so that should enable you to create things that are valuable and serve your donors in a way that also helps your mission.
Yeah. That's awesome. That unity is so powerful in bringing those two together. And so appreciate you sharing that. We do have our mystery question coming up, but before we do, can you just give people an idea of where they can connect with you further, whether that's learning more from you, some of your resources, or maybe having a conversation with Beeline Marketing?
Yeah. So our website is yourbeeline.com, and you can reach out on a contact there. I'm also on LinkedIn, Chris Barlow. If you want to find a really interesting resource on our website, it's kind of fun to play with. And I think it does a little more listening than a typical, is on the bottom right corner of the homepage, there's a little bee that you can click on, and it will ask you, what is the biggest marketing question or issue you have right now? And you can put in whatever you want. Tell it what you're struggling with, what you're needing more information on, what resources you need, and it will create something for you based on our knowledge and experience and content, and then you can have it emailed to yourself. And so it's my little attempt at trying to have a resource that can be quote unquote listening to you, and that's customized for what you're looking for. So that's one way that you can engage with some of what we share and teach. And of course, I welcome you to email me to chris@yourbeeline.com.
Yeah, that's super cool. We're going to link to that in the show notes as well, so people can jump there, explore, click the B, and go on that journey. That's awesome. All right, mystery question time. Now, sometimes these are funny. Sometimes these are like funny stories, and sometimes they're more serious, or more, maybe not serious, but not on the humorous side. And we talked a lot about listening to donors, listening to people, understanding them. And I think that that's a really important skill. And so I'm just curious for everyone, and I have to answer this too, but what makes you feel listened to and heard?
My wife is extremely good at listening. And to the point where sometimes she would be the wisest person to answer something in the room, or have something to say. We have 7 kids, and she'll be sitting in a room full of people, full of moms on their first kid, giving advice and stuff. And she won't say anything. She'll just listen to them, affirm what they have to say. They might not even know that she's mom of 7 kids. So to me, for me, I guess one of the biggest things is when it's an emotionally tense moment, when someone is listening and can share what I'm feeling without getting derailed, or without it, even if it's something they disagree with. It's just they can affirm or just summarize what I'm saying or feeling. Mm-hmm. To me, that's what it means to listen well.
Yeah, that's good.
I was going to say something similar, which is usually when the person like repeats back what I said in a way. I mean, this is what active listening is, right? Like if you've been to any type of counseling, but like when someone repeats it back to you in a way that's like, yes, that's exactly how I'm feeling. It's like, even if they don't agree with you, you're like, oh, they get it. They get me. And that's I feel like when it feels the best.
Yeah. I think when people ask me good questions based on what I've said, because sometimes it feels like in order to do that, you have to actually listen and understand. And then you are like, a good question then tells me that you're thinking about what I said and not necessarily just waiting for me to be done so that you can have your turn to talk. I feel like that's one of those signals that you can give to people that you're listening. And I actually think not to, to maybe bring it back around to the fundraising conversation. I feel like that's what is so powerful too about suggesting the right next step for people is it tells them, hey, we're listening and we hear you and we know you. And I think that makes people feel heard. Certainly does for me. So
yeah, that's just a little mini tip about active listening. That's a great principle to apply to a Google ad. Put what they said in their search as your headline, as your first headline. Just repeat back to them what they said. And because that shows someone, hey, what you said is actually the most important thing about my ad.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's a really helpful tip to close on. And so, Chris, we're super thankful for you and for taking some time to talk with us, to share some wisdom and experience. We'd encourage everyone to go check out Chris and Beeline and the work that they're doing, get some resources that are going to be helpful, and also follow along on LinkedIn. And I know that you're doing a lot to help a lot of nonprofits. And so we're really grateful for it.
Thank you for having me. Good to be with you guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Responsive Lab. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a review. Your feedback helps us continue to bring you the best content, and we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment and join the discussion. We love talking all things generosity and technology, and this podcast is fueled by Virtuous, the responsive fundraising platform that works for you. Virtuous is a great example of using technology to scale your fundraising and personal relationships with your donors. To learn more, visit virtuous.org/learn-more. Until next time, keep experimenting, keep innovating, and most importantly, keep making a difference. We'll see you back in the lab soon.